Hacking is a very difficult profession to bring to film. It's a very complex practice that's extremely technical and difficult to explain to the layperson, especially to those that don't know anything about IT or cybersecurity. At the same time, it's more relevant than ever in the modern world, as high-profile cyber attacks have become more and more frequent on major institutions, and our usage of technology has consumed every aspect of our professional and our personal lives. But trying to find good depictions of the practice is hard. Even in good films like the Mission Impossible franchise, will be completely unrealistic about how hacking actually works and how it can be used to gain information covertly. They'll just show Simon Pegg hitting a few buttons on his keyboard and then bang, they have the location of their next destination. But it doesn't work like that. As a cybersecurity professional, I would really like to see it better represented in action films. It's not that I'm asking for a perfect one-to-one translation to the real thing, but I honestly think we can do a lot better than what we currently have. Blackhat is a 2015 Michael Mann movie about the seedy underworld of professional hackers and the intersection between national security, foreign relations, and crime in cyberspace. In terms of Michael Mann, this is definitely his weakest output. The script is just all over the place, and too complex to understand while also straining credibility for anyone in the know and how these operations are actually supposed to work. There are some weird casting decisions. While I've seen professional penetration testers with a build like Chris Hemsworth, it's obvious that he didn't have a lot of knowledge required to convincingly deliver his lines as an apparent super hacker.
That's right, in that memory dump, maybe here traces of code, maybe even this guy's real IP address.
There's also Tang Wei, who's a really great actress, but she didn't seem to speak a lot of English when this was filmed, which led to her performance being pretty strained as she had to deliver a lot of technical networking jargon in a language that was obviously pretty foreign to her.
But fragments of the malware, but it's corrupted.
The two of them don't have much in the way of chemistry, and their coupling towards the end does not feel very earned from a scripting standpoint. But those issues aside, what I really wanted to focus on this video is what the film gets right from a cybersecurity point of view. I've seen articles that discusses the surprising realism of this movie, and I was curious to see for myself how true to form a film like this can actually get. Michael Mann is a studious researcher when it comes to his movies, and he's often able to draw out a lot of intrigue and tension from some of the more mundane aspects of whatever weird niche he chooses to explore. By looking at the ways that he manages to do this right, we can learn about how to better express the profession so that other filmmakers can make something more true to life. Let's get the wrong stuff out of the way first. From first glance, I noticed a lot of technical details that were just straight up unbelievable. There's no way in hell that the People's Liberation Army and the NSA would cooperate in cybersecurity, no matter what the reason.
It's inviting them into the henhouse, Carol.
The PLA and the NSA are basically at war right now when it comes to gray zone conflict, and the very idea that you would ever let a known agent of the PLA anywhere near some of your key assets or people involved in these kinds of operations is pretty ridiculous. It's also kind of weird and bizarre why the NSA and the FBI felt the need to recruit Chris Hemsworth into this operation. His character is a known criminal who's best friends with a PLA agent, and he's also had a history of penetrating major financial institutions in the USA for cash. On top of that, he doesn't seem to have a lot of special skills or understandings that would lead him to be useful for the kind of operation they actually go ahead and recruit him for. Attacking financial institutions like banks is impressive, yes, but it's also a completely different set of experiences that have nothing to do with the main plot, which concerns hacking into programmable logic controllers, or PLCs, to impact operational technologies in factories and energy plants. There's also a slew of mistakes in their conduct, which really pulls me out of the realism that the film works pretty hard to set. The most egregious is when they find a criminal's workstation, which is known to be used to launch attacks. And rather than cordoning off the site and preparing the asset for digital collection, one of the characters, a known member of Chinese intelligence services, just jumps straight onto it and starts issuing commands. This would totally destroy the chain of evidence, which would make the whole thing useless from a digital forensics point of view to aid in any kind of investigation by the FBI or the NSA. But let's not dwell on the mistakes or the weird decisions. There's a lot of good stuff here that I wanted to draw focus to. Believe me, the film gets a lot right about this profession than it gets wrong. So let's take a deeper look. A lot of this film is directly inspired by some of the key issues that dominated the world of cybersecurity in the 2010s. Most explicitly was the role of Stuxnet, a malicious computer worm invented by the United States to target Iranian nuclear research facilities. The plot of Blackhat is kicked off with a very similar scenario in what happened in Operation Olympic Games, where Stuxnet was first deployed in one of the very first acts on state-on-state cyber warfare. In the first scenes of the movie, a criminal executes a code directly into the PLCs of a nuclear power plant in Hong Kong, causing the coolant pumps to override and explode. Coolant pumps are what we would call operational technologies, or OT, wherein they act little more than manual switches, reporting information to a centralized hub, without the usage of any kind of logic or internal processing power that's found in computers. These kinds of technologies are often used in very old and specialized facilities, like factories or energy plants, which would have been developed decades ago, and the rote, archaic technologies that are used to make them work is what they had at the time, and they're pretty reliable and they're impossible to transition out of. Now, OT is becoming more and more relevant in the field of cybersecurity. OT is incredibly hard to target for any type of hack, given the lack of logic or processing memory found in IT systems. But given that they're usually used for pieces of critical infrastructure, it makes them very useful for state-on-state warfare. It's a particularly ripe target for state actors that are looking for vulnerabilities that can inflict civilian casualties, or at least extreme economic suffering on foreign nations. Blackhat's approach to this is similar, it just makes a lot less sense. The plot shows a criminal organization attacking a nuclear research facility in China, not for any grand strategic goal, but rather as a testbed for a much larger, more complex cyber attack, which is to use the same process to target a bunch of mines in Malaysia and buying a bunch of stock options and tin futures, so that once all the mines are destroyed through flooding, they can sell those options when the price of resources skyrockets, killing tens of thousands of innocent people in the process. Targeting a Chinese-based nuclear research facility, if that was your main purpose, does not make a whole lot of sense. Do you really want the full power of the PLA to come down on your petty criminal gang, especially the ones that are mostly targeting United States institutions? Why not just attack something else? They also kill a bunch of civilians in the process, which would be a pretty unnecessary exercise. Despite that, it's laudable that a film to showcase an operation as complex as this, it does its best to try and explain how this actually works in the context of an action film, leading to the actions being much more interesting and richer from an audience point of view. It would be a lot better if it made a lot of sense, but I find it really laudable that the film actually went out of its way to try and do this in the first place. But hacking isn't always so complex. In fact, a lot of the most high-profile attacks on major organizations requires a strong element on playing on the vulnerabilities of people. At one point, the criminals attack the Chicago Stock Exchange to jump the price of soybeans. They do this because immediately prior, they bought a bunch of stock options and opted to sell them once they artificially inflated the price. Why they didn't just do this for tin rather than trying to kill a bunch of innocent people in the process, I'm really not sure. I don't know. The script, it's just a bit all over the place. In the investigation, the team asks the central manager how the criminals could have possibly infiltrated the system, given that it has tight network and physical security controls.
There's only one person who's authorized to access these terminals. Me. My password is my thumbprint.
In the mornings, he explains, the manager uses a USB to run the backups and perform general maintenance, and no one else has access to the facilities. It's revealed later that one of their previous hires had left recently, and he must have switched the USBs that were placed on his desk, so that when he stuck it into the computer, it injected the malware in the system by accident as he went to run his morning backups. This kind of attack is called a USB drop, and it's actually become a super common way of infiltrating a system with really tight physical security controls. In 2008, for example, Russian agents hacked a key NATO system that was air-gapped and surrounded by American military in the middle of Kabul in Afghanistan. The way they did this was literally just by dropping a bunch of USB sticks around in the area, like cafes and stuff, and they just kind of hoped that American military personnel would pick one up and be curious enough to see what was in it. Sometimes relying on people's innate curiosity to plug stuff into their computers is not enough, and you need to employ some kind of social engineering. Social engineering is the strategy of preying on people's natural tendency to want to help people, and using this as a way to gain access to confidential systems. Hemsworth does a similar attack on an office when he's trying to access the criminal's finances, and he does this by tricking the desk manager to plug in a malicious USB into one of their computers. In the film, Tang Wei dresses provocatively and purposefully stains some of the papers that she's holding on her way to the building. She tells the man at the front desk that she only has 5 minutes and needs to present her report to one of the offices in the building, but since the copy that she had was stained and destroyed, she would need a new copy printed.
I'm here to have a meeting with Mr. John Harry in 5 minutes.
Go to the reception on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, I know, but can you help me? My presentation got stained.
She looks helpless, and the man agrees to do it, which leads to the malware being injected into the building's IT systems, giving Hemsworth complete control. Another cyber attack that I like to see was the phishing exercise done against a manager at the NSA. For context, the team wants to use a specialized AI software that's developed by the NSA, which can reconstitute whole code bases based off fragments and a couple of prompts using generative models. They want to access the program but need a login from the NSA, which they refuse to give them because, they're currently working for a known criminal and a member of Chinese intelligence services. After being told on the phone that they can't use the program, Chris Hemsworth tells everyone to leave the room so he can break the law and gain access to the program.
The NSA guy you were talking to, what's his supervisor's name?
Ben Hitchens.
Well, maybe it's better if the two of you and you aren't around for the next part so you can deny being here.
He does this through a phishing attack, which is the type of attack that uses spam emails to gain confidential information to infiltrate systems using malicious programs and Trojans. A phishing attack is probably something that most people are generally aware of. It can come through not just by email but also text messages and even phone calls. The basic idea is to masquerade as a false identity and convince the victim to enter personal information into a fake website or download something that can impact their systems. In Blackhat, Hemsworth uses his knowledge of the person he's targeting and asks for the name of his direct manager. In the email, he references the fact that he just had a conversation with the criminal and is prompted to change their password, attaching a Trojan in the form of a guide used to create secure passwords. The guide has a keylogger Trojan embedded, and when the NSA agent changed his password, Hemsworth gains a login credential to the system. Would this work in real life? Probably not. Any specialized NSA software is probably hosted on premises, making them very difficult to access from the outside due to the geographic boundaries of the system. It's also unlikely that a manager at the NSA would need any advice to write a password, so probably wouldn't download any kind of guide. There would also be virus detection software in their computers, which would immediately pick up that kind of Trojan. Still, I really appreciated the attention to detail in this scene. It would have been so much easier for Hemsworth to just punch some keys into their keyboard and go, "I'm in the mainframe." But no, they took the time to show the intersection between hacking and the vulnerabilities caused by careless people, which I appreciate. It's that kind of detail that's worth exploring.
We're in.
You can call me Chica anytime you want.
So those are the areas that it gets hacking right, and Blackhat excels, drawing from real experiences and showcasing the very real way about humans play a role in infiltrating and compromising systems and information. It's an area I think would work great in film, and there's so many relevant examples that would make great stories that I would love to see filmmakers play around with. Hacking is a cooperative exercise with lots of different people and personalities. It's a ripe field for interesting stories. Blackhat offers potential, but it just misses the mark. I think if we were to take what the film does well, we can have a lot of better films in the future. So hacking is a field that I think shows a lot of potential, but unfortunately I just don't think we've seen the best it can be done presented in film. Blackhat does a great job in a lot of ways and gets a lot more of the interesting details correct, particularly around the human element of modern attacking techniques. That being said, I'm not sure I can wholly recommend this one. It's simply just not Michael Mann at his best. I think you're better off watching one of his other flicks. Or if you're interested in exploring more about the Chinese nation state and how they've used national security issues to create films, I would recommend this other video I did, which talked about Born to Fly. It's really interesting and I think you guys would enjoy it if you enjoyed this video, so please check it out. But anyway, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Thanks a lot.